Up now, we're talking about raising capital in 2018, the fully compliant ICO. I'd like to invite onto the stage Gordon Einstein, who's been with us at many Detainee conferences now. He's talking about the very important subject of regulation in the crypto environment. He's a blockchain and crypto partner at CKR Law and a hybrid crypto attorney, technologist, and enterprise strategist. Can you please give Gordon a very warm welcome to the stage?
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in lovely Tokyo, Japan. This is a modified version of the presentation I normally give. This is the Disney Tokyo Bay edition. So I want you to know that every single image here that references Disneyland is used without their permission. And I'm not going to be distributing this version of the deck, but if you want the Disney free version, feel free to add me on LinkedIn and I'll send you a copy of the deck and you can see everything that we're talking about here. I also need to clarify that I am not with the SEC, even though I had that logo up there. Notice it says I am not the SEC, because I used to have that logo without that disclaimer, and some people said, "Are you with the SEC?" And I was like, "Yeah, don't think so." So this is really about raising U.S. capital in 2018, just because there's a lot of what's referred to as FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there. Many ICOs, many blockchain ventures are avoiding the U.S., which I feel is a big mistake, because the startups that avoid selling their tokens into the United States or who avoid getting U.S. customers are really leaving behind a huge source of capital and a huge potential customer base. And they're sort of surrendering possibly their first mover advantage by not raising capital from this market, from not getting these customers. And I'm here to eliminate the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, so you don't have FOMO. FOMO is fear of missing out. So just so I can gauge my audience, who has heard of FUD before? Oh, that's good. Who's heard of FOMO? Fantastic. All right, so we're on the same page here. And by the way, just for the whole general Detainee is great theme, I was in Gibraltar for Detainee. I had my head down on my laptop, I was working, sending emails, and then Mike Kostash basically came up to me and slapped me on the back of the head and said, "Get out of your work, go see the monkeys of Gibraltar," and I'm glad I did. And so I like Detainee because it combines social and also business. So there you go. Okay, so again, every image is used without permission, and I will be erasing this shortly. It was a terrible oversight on my part. I have to say this because I'm a US attorney, I'm a lawyer, I'm probably not your lawyer yet. Nice to meet you anyways. I have to say that. Okay, now the way this presentation is structured is there's 3 points and then 5 rules. And this is based on feedback that I've received over several months of traveling around the world, talking about ICOs, talking about capital raising. Who here in the room thinks that ICOs are banned in the United States? Good. Who's not going to raise their hand no matter what I say? Okay, just checking. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I want to clear up 3 major areas. Okay, number 1, I want to make something clear. The Securities Exchange Commission in the United States does not have unlimited authority to make whatever law it wants, to ban ICOs, to talk about a token being a security or not a security, any of that. The SEC has what's called Delegated Authority. What does that mean? Well, there's 2, and wherever you are in the world, you should have this just memorized, because this is so valuable in terms of raising capital in the US and elsewhere. There's 2 core laws that form the entire basis of issuing securities in the United States. There's the Securities Act of 1933, and there's the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. These 2 laws rule, okay, and the whole world is dealing with them. And every law that came after this basically amended, I'm doing the short version, but basically amended these 2 laws. Okay, both these laws have a very convenient section called definitions. Okay, and right in section 2A1 of the first act, the Securities Act, is the definition of a security. Okay? The SEC has what's called subject matter jurisdiction over securities or securities fraud, things falsely sold as securities. It does not have jurisdiction over things that do not fall within the definition of a security. So pencils, to use my favorite example, okay, are not, unless you add more facts, they're not securities. The SEC has nothing to say about pencils. It can't ban pencils. It can't regulate pencils. It can't do surveillance on pencils. So and I travel all around the world, and I'm reading news updates in German and Russian, and they go, SEC says all tokens are securities. Wrong. Securities is a defined term. It's defined in the 33 Act and the 34 Act matches. A security is this laundry list of things, stocks, bonds, whatever, and the term we all care about, investment contracts. Okay? In the long list of things that are security, one of the things is an investment contract. That's listed in both the 33 and the 34 Act. It's not defined, however. What the heck is an investment contract? Okay, the reason that term is in there is because when the Congress passed this law, they wanted to take all the prior US state law that defined what a security was and sort of back it into the new federal definition. So there's a whole bunch of US state law about we have a gray zone situation where you're not sure if it's a security, whether it is or not. If it qualifies as an investment contract, then it's a security. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. This initial law was passed in 1933. It wasn't until 1946 that there was a US Supreme Court case that interpreted and came up with the meaning of what an investment contract is. That's the famous SEC versus Howey case. Okay, and this involved a sale of orange groves and some economic interests. That's the SEC trying to make everything a security through their magic powers. That's a joke. Okay, and so what the SEC basically got into a lawsuit with Howey and said the orange groves you're selling plus the economic interests are a security. Went all the way up to the Supreme Court came up with a 4-part test about whether or not something is an investment contract. Is there an investment of money in a common enterprise, which is a very fought-over term, with an expectation of profit? In other words, you're not just doing it as a gift. Primarily or solely through the managerial or entrepreneurial efforts of others. There's this 4-pronged test that whenever someone's issuing a token that they think or pray or hope isn't a security, they're hoping is failing the Howey Test. Failing it, not passing it, failing it. Because if any one of those 4 prongs is not true, then the thing you're selling is not an investment contract, therefore isn't a security, therefore is not under the jurisdiction of the SEC unless you're committing fraud, unless you're lying. Okay? So the Howey Test is there an investment of money, okay, in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit primarily through or solely through the managerial or entrepreneurial efforts of others? All right, so I go around the world and I have everyone saying, oh, the SEC banned tokens or every ICO involves the sale of securities. Wrong. This is the law. Okay, number 2 is the chairman of SEC, Jay Clayton, was making some public statements that scared people, that made people concerned that every token sale involves securities or every ICO was the sale of securities. The SEC has backed off this position publicly. Okay? The reason I believe that they've done this is that there's many legitimate blockchain and crypto startups that when they were trying to decide between setting up the US or elsewhere, were fleeing the United States because they were afraid. Well, if everything I sell is going to be a security, that's kind of scary, even if you're just selling pencils. It doesn't make sense. And the US started losing business, and everyone was going to Estonia or Lithuania or elsewhere. So now the SEC has admitted publicly, what to me was obvious, which is not all token ICOs involve the sale of securities or fraud. If you go to the SEC website, go to sec.gov. And by the way, I have to say the SEC has a fantastic website. It's very informative. They have a lot of good material. The SEC is generally a very productive and positive agency. I think they were overreaching with tokens and this whole ICO area. But in general, they do a really good job. So if you go to sec.gov/ICO, they have right there 5 things you need to know about ICOs. They say, as part of those 5, ICOs can be securities offerings. Not they are, not they always will be, not most of the time, they can be. And then they say something which is basic law. ICOs, based on specific facts, may be securities offerings and fall underneath the SEC's jurisdiction. Okay, again, ICOs based on specific facts may be securities offerings. In legal English, there's shall be, and then there's may be. If something shall be a security or is a security, it's 100%. Maybe means we really don't know. We need to look at the facts. Well, what facts are they looking at? They're looking at the nature of each individual offering. Specifically, does it pass the Howey Test? That's what they're saying. What they're really saying right there is, we're going to apply the Howey Test. And if you satisfy all 4 prongs, then your investment contract, therefore security, therefore it may be the public offering of securities, but if it's not, it's not. Also, Clayton went to Princeton University, and when asked if all ICOs are fraudulent, he said absolutely not, and he gave some examples of ones that wouldn't be. So again, the SEC has backed off its position. All right, now here's a little bit of philosophy. And normally I have a pen or pencil in my hand, but just imagine I have a pencil. Does everyone see the pencil? Does anyone not see the pencil? Okay, good. I got hands raised. Okay, so just let's go for some real basic things. A pencil is not a security. A pencil does not pass the Howey Test. Okay, if you sell pencils into the United States, the SEC has nothing to say about it. Let's take it up one more level. If you take your pencil and market it like a pencil, you know, it's a nice yellow pencil, it has a sharp point, it comes with an eraser, it's number 2 lead, it's great. The SEC still has nothing to say about it. What if you market your pencil as a security? This pencil will go up in value. It will be highly exchangeable. Everyone wants it in the future. It may pay dividends, even though you really don't intend to. Well, here's a basic rule. If you take a non-security, like this pencil, and market it like a security, the SEC will believe you. Okay? In other words, the marketing of something has a huge impact about whether or not the SEC steps in and takes action. And if I didn't explain this perfectly, every nation, every jurisdiction has an agency that enforces local securities law. The United States has the Securities and Exchange Commission. As you recall, there's 2 acts that form the basis of U.S. securities law. There's the 33 Act and the 34 Act. The SEC was founded underneath the 34 Act. In the United States, that's the main agency. In Switzerland, you had FINMA. In Singapore, you have MAS, so the SEC. So if you market your pencil as a security, the SEC will believe you. If you market your pencil like a pencil, then you're fine. Now, what if you tokenize your pencil? What if you make a software representation of your pencil? Before the SEC backed off its position, there was sort of the vibe that if you have this tokenized pencil, in other words, a software representation of a pencil or something else, and you sell it, magically it would turn into a security. That is not the case. Okay? If you tokenize a pencil, if you make a software representation of a pencil or anything else that's not a security, you're still not a security. What if you make that tokenized pencil exchangeable? What if you say it's going to be listed on Binance or wherever? For better or for worse, you're heading into a little bit of a legal gray zone there. Why? Why does that make any sense? Many things are exchangeable in life, and they're not securities. Well, recall underneath the Howey Test, one of the prongs is that someone's investing with an expectation of profit. Okay, you have an investment of money in a common enterprise with an expectation of profit. That's a huge one, primarily through the efforts of others. Well, what's happened to a couple ICOs is they've taken tokens that legitimately would not be securities, but they've talked up certain characteristics of those tokens, including the fact that they intended to have those tokens listed on exchanges, and to maybe an over-aggressive ear that begins to sound like you're talking about that you can sell this token later for a profit. Okay, so just heads up, if you're selling a token that you believe is not a security, it fails the Howey test, be really careful about your plans, about discussing your plans to list that token on an exchange, because some people feel that causes you to pass the Howey test and therefore be a security. What if you have a pencil plus what I call an enterprise interest, meaning this pencil, already, wow. Okay, well, jamming right along. I'll leave you with a final thing on this slide. An IPO, okay? Some people think that means initial public offering. Well, what if it's initial pencil offering? Okay? I just got to say, ICOs, the term, sounds freaking sexy. Why does it sound sexy? Because it sounds like an IPO, initial coin offering. Everyone understands what an ICO is because it sounds like an IPO. The problem is using that term is that because it sounds like an IPO, it sounds like you're selling securities a little bit. So everyone's kind of sort of gone over to token generation event or some other term that doesn't sound nearly as good. I still use ICO because I didn't go to law school, spend all those years going to debt to wake up in the morning and say, I'm doing a TGE. That sounds terrible. I want to do ICOs. So, but just be aware that when you're doing an ICO and you're marking your token in that manner, it's somewhat evocative of creating an expectation of profit. Now, I'm going to jam as fast as humanly possible. Okay, well, I will send this deck, and this is my favorite one. All right, just be aware, the IRS, the SEC, the FBI, the CFTC, I am really taking this deck down, but you get the idea. I just had to do it. They're all watching now. Okay, so when you're selling tokens, when you're doing ICOs, right, comply with the law. The days of them now looking are over. If you're selling a security, qualify with local securities laws. If you're not selling a security, if you're selling something that fails the Howey test, the biggest, most important two things are don't lie when you're selling your security, give full disclosure, be accurate, okay, and don't market your token like a security. And the very last part is work with good people. So thank you very much. I'm more than happy to send this deck to everyone. That's right.